Hello, dear friends. So with this video, we're going to start our lessons. And we're going to first try to learn the fundamentals of Python, because, as you know, we will be studying with Python for our data science course. Now, in our first lesson, it's basically the concept of variables and data types in Python. So let's get started. So what is a variable? Actually, a variable is just a reserved memory location to store values. Okay? So this means that when we create a variable, we reserve some space in memory. Now, based on the data type of a variable, the interpreter allocates memory and decides what can be stored in the reserved memory. So why do we need a variable? Well, when we're programming, we may sometimes need to store the numbers, names, or other data that we use for just a little while. So at this point, we can do this through variables. So how do we define a variable? Unlike other programming languages, in Python, we don't need to use a command for declaring a variable. A variable is created the very moment we first assign a value to it. Now, as you can see on the screen, it is a defined variable. The operand to the left of the equals mark is the name of the variable, and the other one is the value stored in the variable. So I want to go through a few examples. Create a variable named a and give it a value like 10. So here a is the name of the variable and 10 is the value of the variable. So let's create another variable named name and give it a value like John. Or let's create another variable named Miles and give it a value like 130.7. And let's create another variable named city_name and give it a value like London. Now, as you can see here, a variable can have a short name, like X and Y, or a more descriptive name, like age, car name, total volume, these kinds of things. But more importantly, when we create a variable, there are some basic rules that we've got to follow when we're naming this variable. So a variable name must start with a letter or the underscore character. A variable name cannot start with a number. A variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores, A to Z, 0 to 9, and, of course, underscore. Variable names are case sensitive. Age is not the same as age and, of course, age. So these are three different variables. A variable name can't be a keyword defined in Python, which is for, while, elif, if. So now we can talk about the different types of data in Python. So what is data type? So as you may already know, the data stored in memory can be of many types. For example, a person's age is stored as a numeric value, and his or her address is stored as alphanumeric characters. Now, Python has various standard data types that are used to define the operations possible on them and the storage method for each of them. So Python has 5 standard data types: numbers, strings, lists, tuples, and dictionaries. So, how can we learn the data type of a variable? With the help of the type function in Python, we can learn all the data types of variables. So let's learn the data types of the variables that we just created. Type A and learn the data type of variable A. The result is integer. And because variable A takes a numeric value, the result is an integer. All right, so let's check the others. Type name. The variable name takes an alphanumeric value, so the result is a string. Type city name. The result is string. Type miles. The result is float. All right, so let's continue with our lessons. Now, as you can see in these examples, we came across concepts like integer, string, and float. So what the heck are these? For example, what is integer and how does it compare with float? Integer and float are concepts of the number data type in Python. So in Python, we can store numeric values in the numbers data type, right? There are 3 numeric types in Python. Integers that store positive or negative integers without a decimal point. Floats that store positive or negative decimal numbers. And complex numbers that store the values of a plus bj. So here a is the real part of the number and b is the imaginary part, let's say. So complex numbers are not used that much in Python programming, so that's probably to your benefit. I know it is to mine sometimes. So let's see some of these examples. So let's create a variable named a, and let's make it 10. And we'll check the data type of this variable, and as you can see, the data type of the variable a is integer. Now create another variable named b, and let it be 99.9. And what you see is the data type of the variable b is float. Now let's create another variable named c, and let it be 45.j, or 45.j. And as you can see, the data type of variable c is complex. All right, so now let's talk about the strings concept. So what is the string? What is a string? Has it got anything to do with string theory? We'll cover that in a different course. What you do have to know here is, in Python, a string is traditionally a sequence of characters, all right? Either as a literal constant or as some kind of variable. So they're the same text that we'll use in real life. Strings are among the most popular types in Python. So how do we define a string in Python? Well, it just so happens that creating strings is as simple as assigning a value to a variable. String literals in Python are surrounded by either single quotation marks or double quotation marks. With a single quotation mark, it's like, and with a double quotation mark, looks like this. Now, the point to note here is, if we start to create the strings with double quotation marks, we have to finish with double quotation marks. So if we start with a double quotation mark and finish with a single quotation mark, we'll get an error like this. So at this point, I really need to mention to you about the print and input functions in Python. So print and input functions are built-in functions in Python. Built-in functions mean it's just a function that's defined by Python, and we can use it when we call. We're going to examine it in the functions lesson a little bit later on. But for now, the print function displays its argument as a line of text. So let's see it. Print, welcome to Python. So in this case, the argument, welcome to Python, is a string, which is a sequence of characters enclosed in double quotes. The input function is also a built-in function, so it'll request and then obtain some user input. So let's have a look. So we define a variable name, named name. Name equals input. What's your name? So here, first input will display its string argument to tell the user what to type, and then waits for the user to respond. So we typed John and press enter. So the function input then returns those characters as a string that the program can use. Now here we assign that string to the variable name. Oh, one more thing then, and then our lesson will conclude. The data type conversion. Yes, we got to know about what is data type conversion. Now, as you may know, in most programming languages, the conversion of data types to each other is, well, it's very important. Sometimes we may need to perform some conversions between the built-in types. So to convert between types, it's very simple. We just use the type name as a function. Now, there are several built-in functions to perform conversion from one data type to another, and these functions return a new object representing the converted value. Float, integer, string, they're all converters. Why don't we give it a shot? Create a variable named variable_1, and let's let it be 100, and check the data type. It's integer. Now, if we type like this, float variable_1, and check its data type again. And what's the result? As you can see here, our variable's data type turns integer to float. Also, we can change it to string with str variable1, and the result is as you see. So our variable's data type has become a string. And that's it. So in this lesson, we learned variables as a concept in Python and how to define variables. Also, we learned what data types are and how to learn the variable's type. We also talked about numbers and strings as data types. We even learned how to change a variable's data type. So in the next lesson, we're going to learn the concept of the operator in Python. Hope to see you in the next lesson. Until then, have a nice day.